My biggest takeaway so far in SEC Media Days, and please hit that like and subscribe button. My biggest takeaway, Oklahoma's not ready. I just don't believe that they are ready for the SEC. We know that Texas is, right? They've shown us enough. But I'm not sure that Oklahoma is ready. I want to point out a couple of things. If you look back at what Oklahoma did last year, a 10-win season, pretty good, right? You get excited about that. But Caleb, when you watched Oklahoma, what did you think about them last year? And I want to take a look at their schedule and then discuss what they got coming back, because I'm not sure they're ready for the SEC. And speaking to some of their media members, it seemed like they were just excited to give this thing a run. Well, it's kind of like a huge roller coaster. You better be ready, not just excited. It better be a little bit of both, or you're going to vomit on the first drop. What did you think of Oklahoma last year?
Oh, last year I thought that they got one fluke win over Texas. That game was a wild back and forth game, and I think if you play them 1,000 times, Texas is winning probably 750 of those times. I guess I should have said 775 out of 100. But still, so that wild win was really all they could rest their laurels on. They lost to Kansas, and they lost to Oklahoma State. They lost their bowl game to Arizona. Their other wins, they didn't beat one other ranked team last year. And Dave, I got the same vibe from you yesterday just watching Brent Venables speak. He's very insecure. Now, he's not like insecure. I'm going to be fair to his character. He's not insecure the way Butch Jones was insecure. That was just an embarrassment of a human being, the way he was, Butch Jones. But Brent Venables is, for him to leak that, just volunteer that information yesterday. We've had a lot of NFL teams come and try to poach our staff. Who just volunteers that out there? You know?
Well, clarify that statement for those that didn't hear.
Brent Venables just volunteered at SEC Media Days that lots of NFL teams have been coming trying to poach staff members off of Oklahoma right now. And I'm like, really? Have they? Do I really? I don't really believe that. So I think you're just saying that. And there were just little examples of that yesterday. You know, him insisting they're ready for SEC play. Like, you're right. Texas isn't out here talking about we're ready for SEC play. They're just talking about whether or not they can win the SEC. Oklahoma's trying to make the case they're ready for SEC play and they'll be able to handle the schedule. And they just seem very insecure. And Brent Venables, it seems like a top-down thing coming from Brent Venables.
Well, and they barely beat UCF last year. That was about as fluky. I hate to call it a 10-win season fluky, but my question is, too, why do you have Dylan Gabriel transfer out? And I understand that Jackson Arnold is their quarterback of the future. And by the way, I will give them kudos for bringing Jackson Arnold to SEC Media Days. But why does Dylan Gabriel, who was in the Heisman Trophy discussion at times, transfer out if that offense is going in the right direction? And let me offer you this as well. Going in the right direction is winning 10 games. I mean, that's something they have to do on a regular basis. And you have to do that with offense. Venables is a defensive coach. I just don't like the direction of this program.
Yeah, I've always said defensive coaches, if you're trying to be a national title contending team, you hire defensive coaches at places where you can easily wake up and get top 3 recruiting classes, like a Georgia or an LSU, right, Dave? But like, otherwise, you probably need to get a creative offensive mind. That is an issue with Oklahoma, and I'm just not. I think they're going to come back down to earth.
Well,
this year. I got a couple other.
So you kind of alluded. Do they have a philosophical issue? Okay, I've got an issue. I've got a basketball issue, Caleb. I can't jump, and I'm 6 feet tall. Okay, so I can't play basketball at a high level. All right. I just wonder if there are limitations when you have Brent Venables in the modern day of college football, because he's not an offensive coach and he's a defensive coach. That would be my concern if I'm an Oklahoma fan.
Yeah, and people like to say, "Oh, just hire the right offensive coordinator." Dave, as you know, that's easier said than done. You hire the right offensive coordinator one time, they'll get a head coaching job the minute you do well with them. I mean, look at what happened to Dave Aranda at Baylor, right? In 2021, he went 12-2, And then he fell to 6-7, and he fell to 3-9. Now, Jeff Grimes did remain offensive coordinator the whole time at Baylor during that moment. But in general, it's just defensive coaches can have that flash in the pan and then fall apart, and their offensive staff is never going to be that stable.
Let me give you some options. What will Oklahoma be in 5 years once they're completely indoctrinated into the SEC? They will be Alabama in its prime, Texas, who is contending right now. Or let me update it. Georgia, they'll be Texas, or they'll be Missouri, which is basically champions, true competitors, flirting as competitors. What's their ceiling?
Georgia, Texas, or Missouri, you said?
Yes.
Somewhere between Missouri and Texas. They won't be Missouri, but because Missouri goes 11-2 one year and it's like the greatest season ever. But they won't be that. But I think, which by the way, we're sticking on this topic. Eli Drinkwitz is one of my other takeaways from yesterday because I just have to point out something he said in a second. But
I can never get enough of Eli. Do you want me to do my what is it he said?
Your Lou Holtz Eli Drinkwitz combination.
Yeah, what was it he
Stand on business.
Stand on business, Josh. All right. So what did you think about Eli Drinkwitz? Did he make a fool out of himself? If not, then I think he won today.
He didn't make a fool out of himself unless you count blatantly lying as making a fool out of yourself.
Yeah.
Because he went out of his way yesterday to say that, I kid you not, Missouri doesn't rely on exterior noise or exterior factors to provide motivation. Now, Dave, that's the greatest lie ever told. If any coach relies on exterior noise, it's Eli Drinkwitz, right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
This is the guy that literally changed his whole game plan to make sure he beat Tennessee to the potential detriment of other games last year. And then said, we stand on business, Josh, to the camera. And then, by the way, has gone around doing rounds, and he did it again yesterday, lying about why he said that. He said it was some deal with the team captain, and they were behind him, so he felt like he had to say it. Guys, he pays attention the most to outside noise. That's one of the biggest lies I've ever... Like, I get coaches lie, okay? But
now
that was an obvious one.
Explain... A lot of people may not be aware, but explain that, because we did report this, that... We were told by a very well-placed source within the SEC that Missouri basically completely changed their defense to beat Tennessee, which means they may have kept a great defensive scheme in the closet for a while before they brought it out against Tennessee. That, to me, is not a wise move. You shouldn't put that much on one game, Caleb.
No, you shouldn't. Now, to them, it seems wise because they went 11-2 last year, and maybe they were happy with that. But maybe if they didn't change their defensive scheme so late, maybe they would have beaten LSU earlier in the year. Maybe they would have beaten Georgia and gone and played for the SEC title. Who knows? Maybe they sacrificed a potential shot at the SEC title just to beat Tennessee. Now, there's knocks on Tennessee for not changing their game plan to adjust. But I will say that, yes, it's very intriguing that Eli Drinkwitz did that, and it seems pretty uniquely obvious that he did. They were angry about Josh Heupel running up the score on them the year before. Josh Heupel did that because Josh Heupel was upset that he didn't get the Missouri job when it opened up after Barry Odom was fired at the end of the 2019 season. That's where this all comes down to. Because for those who don't remember, Josh Heupel was offensive coordinator at Missouri and really helped rebuild the program with Drew Lock after it had almost fallen into total disrepair when Gary Pinkel retired. So I'm saying all that to say Eli Drinkwitz, let's forget the stand on business. This guy did a lightsaber video a couple of years ago. He did a thing playing with a guitar with a recruit 2 weeks ago. This guy's the king of thinking about outside noise. So, he got into a fight at a basketball game. He started talking trash to Tennessee players at a basketball game earlier this year. You don't do any of that if you're not thinking of outside noise, okay? You can't do all that and be like, I don't think about exterior noise. I'm an upstanding coach. I'm just, your professional Nick Saban who just focuses on my team. Okay, sure.
Portions of the program brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechatwith2ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. The Great comparison on the message board. Eli Drinkwitz is most like whom? The show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, one of the things that you knew was going to be asked at SEC Media Days of the Georgia contingent was about their...
Hold on, you asked... Wait. We teased who Eli Drinkwitz reminds us.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, it's Butch Jones.
It's Butch Jones. Yes, it's Butch Jones. All right, sorry, move on.
It was so easy. I slipped up. All right. Georgia and Kirby Smart were going to be asked about the driving issues. What did you make of their response as we look at the takeaways of SEC Media Days?
I thought that, again, it's what I believe the whole time. I feel like they've actually been handling things well. They've just been unfortunate with players not heeding the warnings. That's very creative, the NIL news. Did you hear about what the Georgia Collective is doing, which was revealed yesterday?
Yes, they're basically fining their players.
I love this. I love this. And I think
I love it, but I don't think it's going to have any effect. I'll tell you why.
You don't? I actually think it will. And I thought about this recently. I think what Georgia's doing could instill a new level of discipline in college athletes that's never been there before. It was one thing back in the day, if you got in trouble, Dave, and you got suspended for a game, but your scholarship stays, right? You still got your scholarship. You might even not get suspended for an important game. Nowadays, just like the NFL, there's a potential monetary loss for a suspension. And honestly, I think that could drastically... We thought NIL was going to make discipline worse. It could make discipline better because if you're in the NFL,
it already has.
You think it already has?
Yeah, because guys know that they're more marketable if they don't get in trouble. Now, if you're elite like James Pierce, you make $1 million anyway. It doesn't matter. But let's take a player like Cooper Mays, who's probably a third, fourth round pick. So he's a mid-level guy. He'd like to make all the money he can while his football days are ahead of him. He's going to present the best possible face forward, and he's not going to get in trouble. And that goes with 99% of this team. I've been amazed, and I've spoken to Tennessee about how amazing it is that they haven't had more issues. And I think that is NIL related. And I don't know if they're doing fine yet, Caleb, but at the very least, it makes you think, am I marketable? Because I'm sure as heck not marketable when I'm on the strip holding some guy up for a cheeseburger.
Yes, that is very true. A lot of the crimes committed most of the time, let's be fair, by college athletes, it's not New Keith Richardson deciding I'm going to go hold up a gas station, which is still probably the dumbest crime anyone's ever committed as a college athlete. I got to be honest. I can't believe you'd be that stupid. Most of the time, the crime is, they got drunk and got into a fight, or they were playing around in cars like Georgia or something like that.
Smoky Mountain Red nailed it. Playing time is way more important to them. So listen, yes. I've said this a million times and you don't believe me. There are decisions made where a guy is 51% better than 49%, and you have to make a tough decision over who you're going to start. Well, if one guy has a penchant for getting arrested, that's not the guy you're going to start. So yes, and if you're not on the field, you're worth less in NIL. If they haven't gotten this message by now, they're crazy. Caleb, we use the excuse, too young, blah, blah, blah. But if somebody told me at 18 years old that if you write something really, really good, or you host this show and you do a really, really good job, we're going to pay you in addition to getting the credit that you've already gotten and your scholarship, you don't have to even fine me. And I have a feeling that the fines are going to be minuscule compared to the amount of money they're making. I hope I'm wrong, but I think they're going to be like the NFL, where the NFL, it's nothing to throw them $5,000, $10,000, or even $100,000. I'm afraid that's what the fines are going to be like in college.
Well, I mean, I don't know though, because
Well,
like
now, Travis points out, and I'm sorry, I was all over the place for media days. You can get caught in the weeds. Travis said that Kirby said he's holding 6 figures of NIL away from the players with traffic violations. Can you clarify that for me, Caleb? Is that 6 figures from one player or multiple players? Because surely one player hasn't been fined $100,000. And to me, just to lump it all together is kind of a weak way out.
no. He just said, from my understanding, is that over 6 figures have been withheld reportedly.
Well, good.
Total.
I mean, that's like $5 per traffic incident.
Again, in Georgia, you're right. But wait, let's be fair on this. Here's the other part. You're bringing up the NFL. Dave, an NFL fine is one thing because not most NFL players. I don't want to get this idea out there because I think people get this misconception. NFL is the one league, Dave, and you know this. Players outside of quarterbacks, you're not making generational wealth in the NFL most of the time. Like other leagues, you're making generational wealth. NFL, you're making good money, but you better be smart until you get that big contract. But it's still relative to NIL in college, your fines in the NFL are not that big of a deal. NIL fines, yes, they're huge. They're huge.
If they're 10%, 15%, 20%, just don't make them like 0.5% like in the NFL.
Right. But 0.5%, like it's like taxes. If you pay 10% on your taxes and you're a billionaire, you're missing that money a lot less than if you pay 10% on your taxes and you make $1,000 a year.
Right. Let's just say James Pierce is making $1 million this year, for instance. Let's just throw that out there. If you fine him $10,000, it's no big deal. $50,000, it gets to be a big deal. $100,000, I mean, that's 1/10 of your pay. So it can be a great motivator. But here's the flip side. What coach is going to throw this out there? And there will be a coach that does this. Well, you think you're going to get X amount from this school, but in reality, they fine their players all the time, so they don't actually get that much. We will have that controversy soon.
I totally agree. We're going to see how it goes, but we will absolutely have that controversy. There will be players fighting. You might see some lawsuits over it, but I get someone's going to sue over their NIL money being withheld because they committed a violation. Book it.